The sun hung low over the vast savanna, a molten disk bleeding into the horizon, casting long amber shadows that danced across the tall grass. Heat shimmered in waves, distorting the line between earth and sky, while a slow wind carried with it the dry scent of dust and acacia bark. In that golden haze, danger was silently gathering. From afar, a pride of lions advanced, a synchronized formation of stealth and intent. Their movements were unhurried, almost regal, yet beneath that grace pulsed a primal purpose. Muscles rippled under sunlit fur as they fanned out in a wide crescent, their paws soundless on the earth, cutting off every escape route. The young elephant calf at the center of this living trap stumbled, sensing what instinct had already screamed. There was no way out. The calf's small ears flapped helplessly, its trunk swaying as it turned one way, then another, searching for an opening in the wall of predators. But there was none. The air itself seemed to tighten around the scene, heavy with inevitability. Its high, trembling cry pierced the quiet, echoing across the plain, a sound of pure, unfiltered terror. 6 lions emerged fully into view. They were all males, a rare coalition, a brotherhood forged through blood and dominance. Their golden eyes glowed like molten metal, unblinking, fixed upon the trembling calf. The leader, slightly larger than the rest, exhaled through his nostrils, his mane stirring in the dry air. Together, they stood shoulder to shoulder, an unyielding wall of power. The elephant calf backed up, its small feet skidding against the dirt until it tripped and fell onto its side. For a moment, it lay there, legs flailing weakly, a pitiful image of innocence against the merciless face of nature. Then came the desperate cry, raw, heartbreaking, a final plea to a sky that offered no mercy. "Stay with us," the narrator's voice might have said if this were a film, because what happens next will redefine the meaning of courage. To understand the magnitude of this moment, one must appreciate the impossible odds before us. The savanna stretched endlessly, painted in gold and green, dotted with lonely acacia trees that stood like ancient sentinels. This was not chaos. This was order, the eternal rhythm of life and death. Yet, even in this cruel symmetry, something extraordinary was about to unfold. The 6 lions did not rush in with the frenzy of the hunt. Instead, they moved with deliberate calculation. Their tails twitched in measured rhythm, eyes scanning, reading the calf's every movement. This was not merely predation, it was a demonstration, a display of dominance. For those who knew the wild, this was a rare spectacle. 6 powerful males cooperating, an alliance normally reserved for taking over rival prides or defending territory. To risk such a coordinated maneuver against a prey as dangerous as an elephant, even a young one, required purpose. It was not hunger alone that drove them, it was the instinct to prove superiority. The calf, though small, represented a challenge. And in the hierarchy of the wild, overcoming fearsome prey reinforced their rule over the savanna. Far away, on a rugged ridge overlooking the plains, Ranger Kofi stood with binoculars pressed to his eyes. Sweat trickled down his temple, though not from the heat. He had witnessed countless scenes of life and death in his years as a conservationist, yet something about this moment struck him differently. The world before him seemed suspended, caught in a breathless silence. Through the lenses, he could see every twitch, every tremor of fear in the young elephant's body. His chest tightened. Every instinct in him screamed to act, to intervene, but he knew the code. Interfering in a predator's hunt could upset the delicate balance, could turn controlled tension into uncontrollable chaos. He had to remain still. His fingers tightened around the cold metal frame of the observation post. knuckles whitening under the strain. "Do something," his conscience whispered. But his training answered back with an unrelenting truth. Sometimes doing nothing was the only way to preserve the greater order. The weight of that silence was unbearable. Around him, the savanna was unnaturally still. No birds, no rustling of grass, no distant calls. Even the wind seemed to have paused, waiting. Kofi felt as though the world itself were holding its breath. "If I step in," he thought, "I could doom them all." But if he didn't, the calf would die. He exhaled shakily, lowering the binoculars for a moment. The conflict inside him was palpable. Ethics versus emotion, duty versus humanity. This was the hardest part of being a guardian of the wild, learning when to watch and when to act. He wiped his brow and looked again. The lions were now closer, their bodies gliding through the tall grass like golden ghosts. The calf's cries grew louder, a mix of pain and disbelief. It was the sound that tore through Kofi's composure. "What would you do?" a voice seemed to ask, "if you were in his place?" Then, just as the ranger's hope began to fade, something shifted on the horizon. At first, it was nothing more than a smudge of motion, a distant mirage blurred by heat and dust. But as seconds turned to minutes, the shadow gained form, a rolling wave of movement, low and vast. Kofi raised his binoculars again, breath catching. A dust cloud was rising far in the distance, growing denser, heavier. Something massive was approaching. He focused sharply and his heart leapt. It wasn't the calf's family. It was an entire herd of elephants, moving with purpose, their silhouettes framed against the burning light. The sound of their approach reached him a few seconds later. A low, rhythmic tremor that he felt more than heard, like thunder rolling beneath the earth. Among them, at the front, towered the matriarch, her tusks long and worn, her hide scarred from battles past. She was wisdom embodied, the living memory of her herd. The call of distress had reached her, a faint, desperate trumpet carried by the wind, yet powerful enough to awaken something ancient and unbreakable inside her. It was not her calf, it was not her bloodline, but elephants did not measure kinship in blood alone. To them, the cry of a calf in distress was a universal call, one that transcended lineage, territory, and self-preservation. The matriarch paused, raising her massive head, ears extended like great sails as she listened again. Around her, the herd slowed. Calves pressed against their mothers, sensing tension ripple through the air. She knew what awaited. 6 male lions united in strength. The smart choice was to turn away, but the smart choice was not always the right one. Her deep, rumbling breath broke the silence. Then, with a slow, deliberate motion, she turned toward the danger. Dust rose beneath her as she began to march, and the herd followed. Kofi's lips parted in disbelief. He whispered softly to himself, "She's going to fight for it. She's really going to fight for it." And in that moment, hope, as fragile as it was, began to take shape against the dying light of the savanna. She was old, not merely in years, but in wisdom carved by time itself. Her skin bore the rough texture of ancient bark, etched with the deep grooves of survival. Scars crossed her flank like sacred markings, each one a story. A drought endured, a predator repelled, a companion lost. Her tusks, worn but unbroken, gleamed faintly under the golden light. She was not just a leader, she was the memory of her people. The matriarch's great amber eyes scanned the horizon, tracing the tremors in the distant grass. A low vibration pulsed through the earth, the kind that travels not to the ears but to the bones. While she paused, lifting her head, trunk curling high, tasting the air. Then came that sound again, faint, trembling, and full of anguish. A calf's cry, not one of her own, yet unmistakable in its plea. In the intricate moral architecture of the wild, no rule is more sacred than survival. Every matriarch learns this from the moment she first leads her herd. Her duty, her sacred vow, is to protect her kin, to ensure that her calves live to see another dawn. Yet now, before her, rose the great paradox of nature, the choice between safety and compassion. Her heart thundered like the drums of the earth itself. Around her, the herd waited for her command. The younger elephants shifted uneasily, their trunks brushing against her legs in silent question. The air was thick with instinct, the scent of fear and the whisper of danger. Somewhere beyond that shimmering line of heat, 6 predators waited. Lions, the undisputed kings of this domain. Every instinct screamed no. Turn away, keep the herd safe, protect the lineage, but the cry, that helpless, lonely cry, cleaved through her reason like lightning through the sky. Elephants are not creatures of indifference. Their hearts remember. They mourn their dead, comfort the wounded, and protect the lost. And this matriarch, with a mind as vast as the plains she ruled, knew that turning away would not silence the sound. It would echo forever in her memory. She took one long, deliberate breath. The decision formed not in thought, but in spirit, primal, sacred, unshakable. With a slow rumble that rolled like thunder beneath her chest, she turned toward the source of the cry. The herd hesitated. Then, one by one, the younger females aligned beside her. The calves huddled between their mother's legs, as if instinctively sensing that they were marching toward a storm. Dust rose beneath their colossal feet as they began their advance, a tide of life moving toward the shadow of death. From his ridge, Kofi could scarcely believe what he was witnessing. Through his binoculars, he saw the matriarch at the forefront, an unstoppable figure of courage. Her pace was steady, her steps purposeful. "She's really doing it," he murmured, his voice trembling with awe. The power of that moment pressed against him like a physical force. She's risking everything, for one. This was not instinct alone. This was empathy in motion, a radical act of compassion that defied the cold logic of survival. Back on the savannah, the lions sensed the change before they saw it. The wind carried the low, rhythmic vibrations of the approaching herd, a deep tremor that set the ground quivering. Their eyes flicked toward the horizon, where the mirage thickened into a wave of movement. The leader's ears twitched, his tail began to lash, his golden mane stirring with unease. The balance of power was shifting. What had been a hunt was now becoming a confrontation. The 6 lions, titans of muscle and confidence, exchanged wary glances. They had fought buffalo, hyenas, and even rival lions, but elephants, that was another matter. Still, pride and hunger intertwined in their minds. They could not retreat, not yet. The calf was within reach. The reward was here. The sound of the herd, though distant, was only a warning, or so they thought. The matriarch's pace quickened. Dust swirled around her massive form, cloaking her in an aura of storm-born majesty. The calves in her herd trumpeted in unison, not in fear, but in solidarity. Their voices carried like the chorus of a tribe preparing for battle. The lions, for the first time, faltered. And in that hesitation, that single fracture in the rhythm of dominance, the smallest creature found its strength. The calf had fallen silent for several agonizing moments, its eyes wide and wet, chest heaving. But now, amid the growing rumble, something flickered inside it. A spark. Perhaps it was the vibration beneath its feet. or the faint, comforting scent of its kind carried by the wind. Whatever it was, the fear began to bend, not vanish, but transform. It became something new, something wild and defiant. With a trembling effort, the calf shifted its legs beneath its body and pushed upward. Its knees wobbled, dirt clinging to its hide, but it rose. The lion nearest to it, a colossal beast with a dark mane and scarred muzzle, stared in disbelief, a low growl curling from his throat. To the predator, the prey's defiance was unexpected. To the calf, it was everything. It lifted its tiny trunk, still shaking, and exhaled. Not a roar, not even a strong trumpet, but a small, squeaky burst of sound. Yet that sound carried more weight than any roar could. It was defiance made audible. A declaration, "I will not die afraid." The lion blinked, his muscles tightening. Around him, the coalition stirred uneasily, tails flicking, eyes darting toward the horizon where the first silhouettes of the charging herd appeared, gray giants against the molten light. In that single instant, the savannah held its breath. Predator and prey, hunter and hunted, all frozen in a fragile equilibrium. The calf stood, trembling yet unbroken, a symbol of resistance. The matriarch's distant trumpet answered it, a thunderous war cry rolling through the plains. Kofi felt his pulse pounding in his throat. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Come on, little one, hold on." The lions shifted again, their precision fractured by confusion. The leader growled low, attempting to regain control of his brothers, but the spell was broken. Their focus was divided, half fixed on the calf, half drawn to the thunder approaching. Dust rose in the distance, blurring the horizon into a storm of movement. The matriarch was coming, and with her came not just strength, but something greater, the embodiment of every life that refuses to bow to fear. For a moment, the savannah itself seemed to hold its breath. Time stretched thin, suspended between two heartbeats, the defiant cry of the calf and the thunderous approach of the matriarch. The air trembled under the weight of possibility. The calf's trumpet, though frail and trembling, was more than sound. It was a declaration. Born from fear, transformed into defiance, it cut through the heavy air like a blade of light through storm clouds. The lions froze, their rhythm disrupted. The leader's paw hovered mid-step, claws half unsheathed. In the wild, hesitation is deadly, and in that instant, it was enough. Fact presenter, the voice of narration might say, this act, born from utter desperation, marks a psychological turning point, not for the predators, but for the spirit of the savannah itself. Predators are creatures of pattern and predictability. They anticipate panic. They thrive on flight. But this was different. The calf's resistance, so small, so futile by measure, fractured the natural order. The lions, wired to expect surrender, found themselves confronted by something entirely foreign. Courage in its purest, rawest form. This was the universal truth of bravery, that it does not bloom in the absence of fear, but rather in the very soil of it. Courage is not calm, it trembles, it bleeds, yet it moves forward. The 6 lions stood in silent confusion, their golden eyes flicking from the trembling calf to the horizon where the dust storm of the approaching herd grew ever closer. Beneath their paws, the ground began to hum. A deep, rolling vibration spread outward like thunder unfurling across the earth. The matriarch was coming, and with her came judgment. The calf, still quivering, took a shaky step forward, as if to face the enemy that loomed above it. Its heart thundered like a war drum, each beat a declaration, "I am not done yet." That fragile defiance became a beacon, a signal sent through earth and air. The matriarch heard it, not merely with her ears but with her soul. Her pace increased, the ground trembled, dust exploded upward, framing her colossal form against the sun like a goddess of storm and mercy combined. The lions shifted nervously, their tails flicked. The calculated precision that had defined their hunt began to falter under the weight of uncertainty. The leader let out a low growl, not of hunger, but of warning. He looked left, then right, measuring the impossible equation before him: 6 lions against an army of giants. Kofi gripped his binoculars tighter, his pulse racing. "Come on," he whispered under his breath, eyes flicking between the calf and the advancing herd. "Come on, show them who you are." The final 30 seconds unfolded in slow motion. The matriarch thundered forward, her massive legs pounding the earth with the weight of justice itself. Her tusks gleamed like ivory spears, her trunk coiled, ready to strike. Behind her, the rest of the herd fanned out, a living wall of power, unity, and purpose. The air was thick with dust, the roar of their advance merging with the pounding of Kofi's heartbeat. The lions braced themselves, every instinct torn between dominance and survival. Their leader bared his teeth, mane whipping in the wind. Then, as if commanded by some unspoken agreement, the coalition made their choice. They did not flee in chaos. They turned as one. 6 figures, golden and immense, pivoting in perfect formation. Not cowards, but kings yielding to a greater throne. Their withdrawal was not shame, but wisdom. The silent understanding that strength is not always measured in the blows one strikes, but in the battles one spares. They moved away with heads still high, tails low, their departure marked by an odd, solemn dignity. Even the wind seemed to hush in respect. The matriarch halted. The earth beneath her trembled to stillness. Dust swirled around her colossal frame as she loomed over the calf, a living monument to protection and compassion. Slowly, she lowered her trunk, curling it gently around the tiny body that shivered before her. A low, resonant rumble rolled from her chest, a sound older than language, a lullaby of safety and acceptance. The calf leaned into her, trembling, subsiding. Its small eyes blinked up at the towering protector, confusion giving way to something new: trust. The nightmare was over. The savannah exhaled. From his vantage point, Kofi finally released the breath he had been holding for what felt like eternity. His hands shook as he lowered the binoculars, his throat tight with emotion. A single tear slipped down his dusty cheek, carving a pale line through the grit of his long vigil. He whispered to no one, "She saved it. She really saved it." But deep inside, he knew this moment was far greater than a simple rescue. What had unfolded before his eyes was a parable, a lesson whispered through the fabric of the wild. It was not a victory of tusks or strength. It was a triumph of understanding. Violence had been an option, the easiest, most natural conclusion to such a standoff. Yet nature, in its infinite complexity, had chosen another path. A balance restored not by conquest, but by respect. The lions had chosen preservation over pride. The matriarch had chosen compassion over fear. And somewhere between them, a fragile harmony had been reborn. The savannah seemed to glow in the aftermath. The setting sun painted the dust in hues of crimson and gold, as if the earth itself celebrated the quiet miracle. The herd lingered for a moment longer, their shadows stretching long across the plains. Then, with a soft rumble from the matriarch, they turned and began the slow journey back toward safety. The orphaned calf now among them, protected, accepted, home. Kofi watched until they disappeared into the distance, his chest heavy yet filled with awe. He understood now that this was more than survival. It was communication, a silent covenant written into the bones of the world, that life, no matter how small or fragile, carries worth. His voice, soft and reverent, carried over the stillness. Sometimes the most powerful acts of strength come without a fight. And as the last echoes of the herd's footsteps faded, the savanna returned to its endless rhythm. Timeless, unbroken, wiser. This story is not just about rescue, it is about resolution. In a world often ruled by dominance and survival, true power sometimes lies in restraint. The lion's retreat and the matriarch's compassion are both forms of victory, one of wisdom, one of empathy. Together, they remind us that the wild, though fierce, is governed not only by fear, but by a deep, unspoken respect for life itself. So, the next time you hear a cry in the distance, remember this: you are never truly alone, for somewhere, someone, or something with a heart as vast as the matriarch's might just be listening.